The episode I hope my daughter listens to. Episode 165. Introducing Callie Dronsfield on the BTS Creative Academy Podcast, Uncut. With me, your host, Martin Colton. Thank you for joining me, Callie.
Thanks for having me.
It's so nice to see you. It's been a little while, hasn't it?
How long has it been?
I don't know. I'm thinking maybe pre-COVID.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Well, so I was listening back through the podcast and a story came up that we'd been through together.
Had
when
we?
you were speaking to Grace.
So some of the stories I tell now, I'm like,
so brilliant.
I don't know who I'm telling what to anymore.
It was the old brick through the window.
Right, okay.
Do you remember that?
Yes, of course I do.
Well, yeah. I was like, do you remember that? So that's just, yeah.
Was that the last party I did with you? Because that's how we know each other.
Imagine lasting memory.
Yeah, that's like we used to do the princess and superhero parties together. We used to do them for Grace. So yeah, I think that was potentially the last time I saw you because then
if I did come to a play here, maybe I've seen you then.
Yeah, possibly.
Maybe briefly.
Yeah.
But not properly.
Because I'm often hanging around. Like if you come here, I'm often loitering.
I'm sure I'll be back.
Yeah.
If Luna keeps putting on shows, I'll be back.
So it's lovely. Thank you for joining me. We used to do the princess and superhero parties together. Are you still doing those?
I'm not.
You're not doing them anymore?
No, I'm like a whole world away now.
Okay.
Yeah, so I work in visual effects now. It's been a bit of an odd pipeline going from like what I was doing to what I'm doing now. But I find that it's like I found my place. It's quite a peaceful feeling. The princess parties and all like the acting background, theatre background, it was, I think, me trying to figure out where I fit into the world creatively, in a sense. Like,
because you started at quite a young age, didn't you?
Yeah.
You've been doing performing all your life, haven't you?
I was super young, so when I was a kid, I want to say like 3, 4, I was super shy, really anxious, emotionally volatile child. My mum was like, what am I going to do with her? Sent me to drama school. That backfired because now I don't stop talking. But it was kind of just to build my confidence as a kid, really, like sending me to theatre, and then started getting involved with stuff at the Playhouse when I was around 7, and have been doing shows and stuff, like I had been doing shows and things ever since then, until about, I think the last show I did was A Midsummer Night's Dream at the South Mill Art.
Right, okay, in Bishop Stortford.
Yeah. And I think it's interesting because like the last few years of me doing the shows and the acting and stuff, I started getting a little bit more like of a sense of I'd prefer to be backstage or in like the team organising it. I've always been like quite...
Because I saw you as an out-and-out performer from an outsider's perspective.
Yeah.
I was like, that's your thing. You were a performer. You were great at the princess parties. So what is it you're doing in the industry at the moment? So you're behind the scenes now.
Yeah, so my actual role is I'm called a scheduler.
Okay.
So it's a little bit like I work between production and the artists. Within my company, so we're like a relatively small, but we do big projects, visual effects company. We work in short form predominantly, so like advertising and music videos, which I find for my brain is perfect because I like new things all the time.
Okay.
So I get to work on a bunch of different projects at once, little projects, big projects, medium projects, all different like scope. And it's kind of my job to make sure that I have the right kind of artist on a certain part of a certain project, like basically sorting out the teams and making sure the teams work. We have like a great in-house team of artists that all have their niche skills, but I also have to look for freelancers to fill gaps that we may be like if we're really booked up with projects and there's a certain discipline that we need, or maybe there's a project that with like a really niche skill and I have to like be on the hunt for that. So basically that's the main part of my job, is making sure I have the right kinds of artists to fulfill each project.
Each role.
Yeah, which is really exciting. You know, like we see all the directors' treatments come in, we can like read through them and see like their approach. And one director might have one approach to a script, and another director will have a complete different one. And it's like we never know which director's going to win it. But then one will win. If we win it, then after that, if they choose to come with us for post, then we'll take it and we'll try and execute their vision.
Is there a lot of pitching involved?
Yeah,
then?
I mean, for us, we don't actually pitch very much. With bigger projects, like bigger campaigns, sometimes we will put pitches forward if we're like quite keen to win them. But most of the time, it's more the directors pitching to the agencies to get things over the line.
And are you working with is there a team of you that you're working with?
Yeah, so we've got a relatively small operations team. So I've got my manager, who's head of operations. The scheduling team, basically, a lot of the time people come into scheduling and then they'll move into production. Okay. And initially when I started at the company, that was going to be like my goal to get into, like, to become a producer. But I figured out quite soon on that actually there was a lot of aspects of producing that I didn't feel like were me.
Right. Okay. So you had this idea and this vision of what you would do, but then once you were there, it started to look a little bit different than the idea. Yeah, and almost like so my manager, who's head of operations, what he was doing, kind of behind the scenes, interested me a lot more. You know, like not a lot of people do prefer that kind of stuff because it is a little bit more spreadsheety, business analytic-y. You're kind of across the whole building, and a lot of the companies kind of relies on you to keep it running smoothly. So it's quite a lot of pressure. But seeing that, I felt like that was a little bit more me. Whereas in production, and some people do have like the skills and the want to do it, but it is a very social role. And I think people think that I'm an incredibly social person and really like extroverted. But I think looking back at my like time in theatre, I think I am an extroverted introvert. I can be extroverted, but it does drain me quite a lot. You know when you need to sort of turn it on, but then there's the real side of Callie as well that's slightly different. I find that with myself as well. I had someone say to me, I said to someone the other day, like, I never expected to be doing something like this where I talk openly and just talk freely because I always considered myself an introvert. Yeah, oh really? 100%, always considered myself an introvert. And was like, and well, that's.
It's funny because you do have a perception of yourself.
Yes, yeah, and then you talk to other people, and it was my sister, and she was like, "There's no way you're an introvert. like, really? like, shut up. Like, that's not who you are." So it's funny, isn't it, how the perception of ourselves is different to how others perceive.
Oh, don't get me wrong. I think growing up, I believed myself to be an extrovert.
Right. Okay.
Definitely.
There was no point for me ever.
Really?
Yeah, no point ever that I considered that.
Gosh. But looking back, I think my like desire to be good at performing was like what was pushing me to be extroverted, in a sense of like, if I'm extroverted, I get praise. And I think that's something that I've like been mulling over the last few years.
So you liked the validation.
And but that as part of why now, like, I'm so glad that I am involved creatively in the way that I am. I'm not putting myself out on a stage, but I'm still around creative people. I can be involved creatively, like curating the teams, but I can like. I'm not like, my name isn't on the credits. I'm quite happy to be...
You're not having to put yourself on show, and you're not having to put on an extra layer of you. Yeah. Sometimes when you're being extroverted, or like being on the stage or doing the princess parties.
Yeah, it's like you're not really yourself.
No.
And now I feel like I get enough value just in knowing that, God, that project went really well. Organisation from me. Yeah. Go me. And it's like my self-validation, whereas I think a lot of times in the past, it's often been like external
validation.
Yeah, whereas in this role, I feel like I still get all those things that I need. Like, I chat to creative people.
And like, you found yourself within that, haven't you? Within that really self-validation rather than the external one. Because I think some people go through their whole lives seeking external validation. Yeah. Because it does feel good.
Yeah,
like, let's not lie about it. Like, it does feel good when others, let's say, you know, when others validate you or you get that round of applause and you're told you've done well. But really, it's so much better when it's coming internally, isn't it?
Yeah. I think also for me, like, I am such a control freak, and I think when things don't feel within my control, I find that really difficult. And the nature of acting, like I can't. That's not something that is like really possible to be an actor. I feel like you need to let go a little bit. But again, like within this role that I have now, I can almost externalize the control. Like the role requires me to be a control freak, which has meant that I've almost separated that from my personal life a little bit. I felt like I'm able to be a little bit more free personally, because I feel like I get my creative control in that department, whereas, you know, in day-to-day life I can be a bit more free-flowing.
So where do you think that, with what you're doing now, do you think you'd be able to do that without all the years of performing?
No.
Without all of that?
Definitely not.
No.
No, and I think that's the thing. I think sometimes when I talk about, I don't want it to sound like, oh, I what a bad choice that was, because I think, like, personally, it's given me so many skills. I cannot imagine the person I would be. I definitely wouldn't have the job I have now.
Where do you think you would be, like, hypothetical? Let's say your mum never dropped you off at the job.
I literally have no idea. Like, maybe I'd probably have done like computer science or something. The reason I went and did English at uni is because I knew I wanted to work in the media, even though I was always better at maths and sciences, but like I was always like more passion driven. But I think the main thing with theatre is, for me, is like the community, and that's what I've stuck with in my like new job. The vibe of the company, like I know everyone knows me, everyone's good vibes, everyone can chat to each other, and it's like you know that, like, when you have an ensemble of a theatre company, it feels like that.
Well, when you're working in a theatre company and you're working towards a show, you have a collaborative project and you're working towards an end goal, and you're doing that at quite a young age if you're starting off at 4 years old, and you don't do them things in school necessarily, do you?
And you're interacting with people of all ages, from all different like walks of life, with all like, and you've all got like the same kind of passion.
Yeah, I've not really considered that until you just said that. When I look back of me starting as well, I would be doing stuff. I started when I was about 16, but I'd be working with people literally of every age.
Yeah, it makes such a difference.
From 18 to 80. Like, and again, you don't. When you're younger, you just experiencing that them older people, maybe an authoritarian, like a role like a teacher.
Yeah.
But you don't see them as someone that you're working with.
Yeah.
And then
it's so different.
Yeah.
You are kind of all on an equal playing field.
So that when you're out in the big wide world and you find the job that's right for you, if you're not used to it, it maybe 100%. Can hold you back, can't it?
Yeah. I do think it's helped me to understand all different types of people. I think empathy and like just kind of having a sense of where someone might be coming from when other people don't understand it. You wouldn't think you'd get those kind of skills from theatre, but I really feel like they have come from theatre.
100%.
Yeah, and just having that flexibility. Like, actors are chameleons. And every role I've ever gone for and every job I've ever had, everyone's like, oh, you're so adaptable. Like, you can just work with it. It's improvisation skills.
Yes, yeah.
You're like chucked into a situation. Right, well, I'm going to have to solve it. Like, not everyone has that quick thinking. Don't. And I think when parents or the government now are like thinking, oh, theatre isn't important, it like, I feel like I am a good example of why it is. Because I haven't gone into theatre as a job, and I would do it as a hobby here and there. I would still do it.
You would still come back. It's always good. I think that's the thing. Once you discover it, it's always going to be part of you, isn't it?
It's just play.
Yeah.
We all want to just stay like children, really. We all just want to carry on.
And that taking play into work. Because again, I feel that when you're in school have got to hit certain targets and have got to get you to certain grades.
Yeah.
The play is worked out of us a little bit, isn't it?
Yeah.
During school. And then your peer groups also take the play out of things because you're judged.
Yeah.
And
especially when you get to high school.
You get to high school and there's so much judgment from all the other kids that you stop playing completely, don't you, unless you play football or a sport.
Yeah.
Then the play is gone, because within play there's failure. And if you fail, you're going to get judged at that kind of age. And then as you get into adulthood, if you've completely lost that skill, then things are going to be a lot harder for you, aren't they?
Yeah. Life, and it's not as fun.
No.
I think like being able to find little bits of joy in things is what keeps you going. But I think like when I've been like reflecting on like my current role, I just feel like people, like I wish people would almost think of something they're passionate about, think of like their number one skill and try and combine that to find their job, because I feel like it's the sweet spot. So
is that what you did then? Did you, like, how did it come about? How did such a change come about for you?
Yeah, so when I left uni, it was like mid-pandemic, absolute nightmare. There was obviously like no jobs. But I knew I wanted to work in media and stuff. I did finally get a job. I worked in a business affairs department at quite a large corporate agency in London. And I was there for about a year. I was basically doing like contracts for voiceover artists and on-screen talent and that kind of thing, but also getting legal clearance for adverts and delivering those to channels and giving them instructions as to when to play and all that. It was quite dull. It obviously wasn't involved in the creative process, but it was a step in the right direction. And I just worked my butt off there and tried to get my foot in the door to anywhere in the media industry generally, because
you knew you wanted to be in the industry, the media industry.
Yeah. I knew I would, if someone gave me a chance, I would like prove myself. But yeah, it's a shame, but a lot of the time it's who you know. Like it's a very small industry in the grand scheme for the amount of people that want to get into it. It's not crazy amounts of jobs. No. And it is one of those like, oh, well, you need 3 years experience of doing this. And often a lot of the experience that you need might be like unpaid, and a lot of people like myself wouldn't have been able to afford to take unpaid work. So while I was there, I actually applied for a mentorship scheme, which would probably be a good one for your listeners to know about, especially if they're young. It's called the Creative Mentor Network. You might have heard of it. But they they do a lot of mentorship schemes. They collaborate with other companies. So my one was a collaboration with the APA, which is like Advertising Producers Association, something like that. So they work with all the advertising kind of companies. And basically if you're successful, you get given a mentor for, I think it was about 6 weeks. And over that 6 weeks, like you have sessions with them and they put you in touch with other people in the industry, and you try and get work experience, or you just basically try and learn whatever you can.
And what does the mentor do in that time? So
the mentor basically kind of tries to help you figure out you can kind of get out of it whatever you want. Okay. You can be at any stage kind of thing, and you can go with like a goal, or they can help you like figure out. Like for me, I went because I wanted to figure out a place for me in the industry, and what I wanted to have like a bit more knowledge of what roles were out there. But I also just wanted to make contacts. I was like, these are people in the industry, I'm going to make a good impression, and then fingers crossed. So I got partnered with a mentor, and she was great. And while I was working at my old job, I was taking holiday and using my weekends to do work experience at all the other places and like making contacts.
You're very driven, aren't you?
Yeah. I can't help it. When I have a plan of like, often it's like I don't know where the goal is. I suppose there is no final goal. It's just keep moving up. Yeah. That's the goal.
I like to think keep moving forward.
Yeah,
like
nice.
Walt Disney said that, and
really?
And it pops up in and it pops up in quite a few Disney films actually. It's like his quote, and if you go to Disneyland, under his statue, it's actually got his quote: "Keep moving forward." Oh. But yeah, you'll now I've told you that. as you watch Disney films,
I'll see it.
You'll keep hearing it. Keep moving forward.
Well, maybe I'll think about it moving forward. But So where was I?
Sorry.
Mentorship.
Mentorships.
I'm actually quite impressed that I've managed to keep my line of thought, because I'm like,
it's okay, I'm here with you.
All over the place brain. So yeah, did the mentorship, was doing all the work experience and stuff. And at the end, so there was 30 people on the mentorship with 30 mentors. And at the end, they were like, 5 people can do a presentation if they so wish. I did not want to, because believe it or not, like me speaking in front of people,
the introvert side of you.
Oh God, it's horrible.
Yeah,
I was like, me being myself is petrifying, but I was like, come on, Callie, you've been an actor. Like, just
see, that used to wind me up so much when people
you're an
would
actor,
go,
you can
yeah,
talk.
people would go to me, oh, can you do a speech at my wedding because you're an actor? I'm like, no,
I'm not a performing monkey.
Yes,
but also,
yes.
that's like you being yourself in a sense.
It is, yeah.
I was like, oh, I'm gonna have to.
And then I know I'm never gonna live up to expectations with that, because then it's like, oh, Martin's an actor, he can do a speech, and he can do this, and he can get up on the stage and introduce everyone, and I'm like, no,
it's so much easier to put on a disguise and be a character.
In old jobs, I used to keep it a secret that I did acting. I wouldn't, like, if I had to go and do a normal job.
People would take advantage. They would. As soon as they found out, actually once, I was working as an estate agent. And the day they found out that I was an actor was the day that I quit. Oh, really?
Because I was like...
I don't think people mean to. It's almost like they think, oh, they must enjoy it. Like, let's let them do what they want.
Yeah. Or we can use this sometimes.
There is that.
Yeah.
Gosh. But, again, I've lost my train of thought.
That's okay. Yeah, sometimes that happens.
Presentation.
Was it the presentation?
The presentation. I didn't want to do it. I did do it because I thought, my name's quite unique and I've got red hair. I'm pretty memorable, hopefully. So I did a presentation, and there was one lady.
So you did it. You did push through. You did push through.
I did it. I was nervous. You could hear it in my voice, but I did it.
Good.
And one of the ladies that gave me feedback on it, I just loved her energy. She was great. So after that, I asked if I could have her details, and we stayed in contact. It turns out she was an executive producer at a company called Blink Inc., and they're like a sick mixed media advertising. Well, they do all sorts, but production company, basically. They do like puppetry and model stuff and stop motion, but also like they'll work with post companies too. She was working there at the time, and she gave me more contacts. And then I met another guy because the Creative Mentor Network asked me to do a talk for them at a school, and he came along, and he was a producer at another production company. And he knew one of the partners at the company that I work at now. And I mentioned to him, I'm really keen on this company, Electric. And he basically put in a good word for me, as did the other lady that I met on the mentorship scheme, because she actually ended up moving to there, and she's now an executive producer, and I work with her. So she put in a good word for me. And then I just kept bothering them until there was an opening. And
what does bothering them look like? Because that can often be like daunting, can't it? Even if then people are saying, I want to help you.
Yeah.
Sometimes it can be a bit like,
It is like seeing the vibe. So the executive producer, she's always made so much time for me. I don't know how, because now I see her at work and we're all so busy. Like, how did you make time for me? So that's really lovely of her. But the way that I went about kind of bothering is more so, if anyone has time to chat about their role and what they do, like I'd love to hear about it, kind of thing. Or I knew that my now manager, he was kind of looking after the team that was one of the entryways in. So I'd love to hear more about his role, because I've never heard of like what an operations manager does within a production company.
So rather than be like demanding, I want this, I want to do that, no. You were being inquisitive. You were saying,
you have to show you're interested.
You were like,
sure. I was interested. I genuinely was, because I thought that sounds like a bit of me. I thought, because visual effects, the nature of it is like it's constantly developing. There's always new stuff. There's always new technology. I'm like, amazing. Again, I get bored very easily. And then short form, I think at schools, like. And it's probably a similar thing for actors. Like, you don't really think, I'll be like a commercial actor, or I'll be like, I don't know. I think the whole, especially for like visual effects students or anyone like any film students, it's all based around film. Whereas like adverts can be like miniature films, which is perfect,
and can be a road in as well.
Yeah,
it can be. Yeah. I'm thinking of a director, Mark Webb. He started making adverts. He then went on to music videos, and then all of a sudden he's directing The Amazing Spider-Man. Yeah. And so like it goes in, you know, you can have a path in the creative industry.
This is the thing. If you have one kind of passion, it's just not saying like this is it. Like like leaving yourself a little bit open to like where that passion could take you. Because I think sometimes you get an idea of like what you want to do and what you want to be. I wanted to be a producer. Within like 6 months, I was like, that's not me. And then I figured out where else I fit.
And that's okay, isn't it?
Yeah, it's fine. Like it's worked out so much better for me now. My job is like perfect for me.
Sometimes we can be a bit resistant to that, can't we? The change.
Oh yeah, it took me like nearly, I want to say like 8 months to admit
to my manager. Yourself. Yes,
because I didn't think that there was that place for me in the company. And also I was like, am I sure? I've had this whole like, for like ever, I thought, oh, I want to be a producer without really knowing what it meant. And a lot of it is just so client facing. And for me, like, I want to be artist facing. I want to be chatting to them. I want to hear about their days and what they want to learn about and what projects they want to be on. And I want to hear about their like progress. Do you know what I mean? I just, with the clients, like, they're external. They want what they want for a certain amount of money. And like, do you know what I mean? They have their own opinions and their goals. And I've been on some client calls when I was like testing the waters. I was like, no.
It's not for you.
It's just not for me.
And I think that's absolutely fine. And we do put too much pressure on ourselves to stick to one idea.
Yeah.
To stick to, it doesn't, you know, I don't think it even matters if we've spent our whole childhood having the idea that we're going to be one thing, and then at some point in adulthood that we go no.
Yeah.
I had my daughter say to me the other day, she's a musician, she's 15, and she's putting so much work into it. And she said to me, I'm really worried, like, and everyone's supporting her. And then the other day she said, I'm really worried that if I get like in my 20s and say I don't want to do this, that everyone's just going to be really upset with me. Oh, and I was like,
but that is such a universal feeling.
Yes, yeah.
Like when your parents have like put energy and like passion and money into a hobby. Like I think I really felt that, like deciding not to go and be an actor. My mum's never like, my mum and dad will both be happy like whatever I choose to do. Yes, which is a really privileged, and I think you'll
find, and I think you'll find that with most supportive parents.
Yeah.
That if they're supporting you with your dream at whatever stage you're at, and you change your mind, I think they'll still support you if you've got a genuine reason to change 100%.
It. But I think for your daughter, like the skills that she's learning and that she's developing through doing her music, like she maybe should think about the career as not, or the finish as not the only thing she's getting out of it. Like she won't realise it now, but she's going to be developing so many skills that later on will become so relevant.
Transferable.
Yeah, so transferable. Yeah. You wouldn't even think about.
Again, with me, I'd have never, this is a reinvention.
Yeah.
Sitting in this chair having these conversations, and
yeah,
I'd have never. Fun. I would, yeah.
How nice.
Like it is,
good excuse for a chat.
Yeah, good excuse to like meet up with people that we haven't seen for a long 100%. Time, and I'm seeing so many friends that I've got another friend coming on this on Wednesday that I haven't like. He was one of my oldest best friends. Oh. You might know him, Ian Greenwood.
No.
You don't know Ian Greenwood? Because he did stuff at South Mill.
Oh, really?
Yeah, he did quite a few like pantomimes around there and things. Oh. You might recognise him, I don't know. But anyway, I was so close to him at one stage in my life. I was his best man at his wedding, at his first wedding. But yeah, haven't seen him in years because life goes like that sometimes.
Adulting is like,
yeah, and he's got a new family, a young child, and he's busy with a big high pressure job. And
this is what I'm worried about. I'm like, how are people doing adulting with children?
Yes.
I'm like, how are people doing this?
Yes, it's complicated.
It's a lot of pressure.
It is complicated, and it takes a little while to work it out.
Yeah,
and
I'm not surprised.
And there's no set like one way either, like because every child is different.
Yeah.
What I love and I find so amusing is the people that have an idea of what it's going to be like to have children when they haven't had them.
Yeah.
Like that's what I'm like, oh, okay, you're going to do it like that, are you? Okay. Okay. You have those hopes and dreams.
I'm not going to pretend like I'm an expert. I've worked with children at children's parties.
So you've seen the vast.
And I know what children can be like, but I know how much worse they can be for their parents, because I know they like to push
boundaries.
I mean, I have my nieces and nephews, and I love them to pieces, but especially with the youngest, I'm like, take him back, take him back. It's been enough.
Yeah.
I mean, yeah. They're lovely, but
yeah, they are, but it's. I'm really enjoying this stage of their life where they're starting to go off and do their own things.
How old are they now?
So my daughter's 15, son's 18.
Gosh,
and
they're starting
to go out into the world, and I feel safe with them being out there in the world as well. Like they're at my daughter's at rock school tonight, getting herself there and back, and she
sounds like a cool girl.
Yeah, and she's doing her thing, and she's trying hard at school. And
that's the thing, though. I think it's when you're that age, it is sad, because I think a lot of people limit themselves because they are like, everything I have to do needs to be leading to a career.
Mm-hmm. That's what we're told, though, isn't it?
Yeah.
We are kind of told that in this society. In this, before we started pressing record, we mentioned capitalism and how it's maybe not the best.
Trust me to mention capitalism.
But there is something behind that in the way that society's set up. It's set up in a way that when we're young, we're told we've got to go out and have
we're labourers. That's all we are. We've got to the big machine.
We've got to go out and have a certain type of job, and we've got to work out exactly what that is.
So I kind of made it my mission, like, if that's the case, we're like, you know what, we're not, like, in my lifetime, we're not going to see the downfall of capitalism, so why not try to if I'm going to have to work my whole life.
We've seen some crazy things. The world is a crazy place. Like, there can be a
revolution. Come on, let's go.
There can be we're not quite the French.
Listeners, rise up.
Rise up.
Can you imagine?
No, but I do think with us all talking to each other about different ways that we could do this. Like, I don't think there's like capitalism and communism and that's like it.
No,
I think there's opportunity for something different.
Yeah, I mean, who knows? That's a whole other big conversation. But while we're in capitalism, if we can try and enjoy our jobs as much as we can, like that's such a privilege.
Yeah, because we're in this, so we do have to figure out.
I was like, if I'm going to have to get up and go to work every day,
and there's a lot of privilege that comes.
Oh my God.
Like from capitalism, there is a lot of privilege. Yeah. There is a lot of good sides to it. It is clearly working in some aspects because for the very very few. Yes,
that's the problem. That's the problem. But
would you say it's for the few?
Yeah,
that it's working.
Well, yeah, we got way more people who are living in poverty than are actually surviving, like meeting ends meet.
So surely that's the point of a revolution then.
Yeah, let's go.
When
overthrow, everyone be equal.
When more of us are struggling than the ones that are succeeding, then then something in the system's broken, and
the system
that's the time then for change.
Yeah, like the wealth gap now is
just
astronomical.
The rich are getting richer and the poor are getting poorer.
Tax them all. Anyway, we're getting onto politics.
I know, it's dangerous.
Not a politics
that's
podcast.
Dangerous. No, but it's like I do feel like it's all connected though. Like, and it is all relevant, and like you said, like the arts are being taken out away from schools because
the arts are a privileged thing anyway. Like I think I had a brief experience of a very well known theatre school in London, where I went full time for about 2 terms. Okay. In year 7, my parents couldn't afford to send me, hence not being there for very long, but being there. And just, actually going to that school and being around the kids that went made me realise how different my life was to them. And I think, the amount of money it costs to go to theatre schools and go to dance classes and go to all these like different things, that's not something that everyone can afford. And if that's being taken out of the curriculum at school, I just think it's going to have such a detriment.
It was brought up in the news actually this week. It's at drama schools, in drama schools, in performing arts education, only 1 in 14 are from a working class background.
Yeah. Well, it's actually, sadly, it's something that I talk about quite a lot at work, because actually I got into my job and then to figure out that basically the majority of production, if not all, are privately educated. And you can tell, like, and I don't mean to do it, but I almost like, you know, I feel like I'm quite Essex. I'm not terrible, like Essexy London. But I think when I'm at work, I find myself speaking better because they all speak quite well. And then I've noticed that I'm pronouncing things more. And then I'm like, why am I changing my voice? Is it because I'm like ashamed to be working class? Or is it because I'm trying to like fit in more?
Yeah, I guess like you could take it that you're trying to absorb the different culture.
Yeah.
And that was going to take me on to, you're starting to make me think about like the problem with that if there are too many people that have come from a place of wealth, then within the creativity that's being created, it isn't going to have different cultures within that.
Yeah,
it isn't
limited.
It is. We're limiting the creativity that's in the industry.
Yeah, and it's going to happen from the bottom up. The more the less funding that the arts get, the worse it's going to get, because only those who can actually afford, parents that can afford to send their kids to these kinds of things are going to have
the opportunity to discover it. And then the opportunities to learn the skills that, again, they don't have to stick. The young people don't have to stick. You're proof of that. Don't have to stick with performing arts.
No. To
benefit from it.
No. But yeah, that's why it's great. Like you've got these mentorship schemes popping up to try and get more, diversity and inclusion around like the creative industries in general. But it's not enough. And it works a lot better in some areas of the industry than others. I think in the next 10 years, you'll just see a decline. And I think also mental health with theatre, I feel like they go hand in hand. The more the kids don't express themselves or don't have that outlet, I just think it's going to cause a lot of problems down the line. Personally, I feel like theatre's really helped me understand myself.
In what way?
Not I don't feel like it was at the time, but I think in retrospect, I feel like it was almost, theatre for me was almost like trying to figure out who I was, trying to fit in, trying to work out other people's personalities, and like pushing yourself beyond your comfort zone. That's like a lot of skills that you get from theatre that you will then take into your adult life. And looking back at theatre, I don't think it was necessarily the going on stage and performing part that I enjoyed. It was the working out of the character and the working out of how we were going to put the whole thing together and working with people. And if I didn't have that growing up, I don't know where I'd have a creative outlet, and I don't know if I would be able to work with people as well, or cope with working with people as well, as an introverted person, or cope with curveballs in life, or I don't know. I am rambling a little bit because I'm trying to find...
it's making so much sense to me, because you're taking me to a place of when I struggled with my mental health was a couple of years ago. I had a really bad time, and I felt like my whole world was crumbling. Everything personally that I'd worked on I destroyed it all, and everything was dark and gloomy, and I had that shadow hanging over me. And I was so lucky I had theatre in my life, community theatre, and I was putting on a show here, a Christmas show, a community Christmas show. And when I walked through the doors here to do that, all my problems went away.
Yeah.
They evaporated. And I was with a group of people that we could work on a project together. And sometimes it was like I just didn't think about my problems for a minute.
Yeah.
And how lovely that is to do that. And so even as we move into adulthood, to still have a creative outlet can be really, really important to us, can't it? Yeah. And I've experienced that. Yeah.
No, I think it's something that it really does worry me that like people don't. I'm like, how do people know how to process things? I feel like I just feel like I learned so much, doing theatre, like just about myself and how I cope with rejection and how I cope with, feeling like I didn't do that great that time, but how am I going to do it different the next time? Why am I going to let this make me absolutely crumble? Or like, actually, is this for me? This actually isn't for me, and that's okay, but maybe I'll do this instead. Like I remember like a really like, and it's mad because I carried on singing anyway, but a very memorable thing for me was doing Peter Pan at the South Mill Arts, because I think I always really enjoyed performing generally before that, acting particularly. But that role included a lot of singing.
Who was you playing?
Peter Pan.
You was Peter Pan?
Yes.
Wow.
The boy himself.
Yeah.
There was a lot of singing involved, and I can hold a tune. I've always been very aware that like I don't like the tone of my voice at all. And if I'm not perfect, it's not good enough. I'm working on that, and I have gotten a lot better at that. But that was a turning point for me to be like, singing is not for me, because I got myself stressed out. I was ill. It clearly was. It felt too far beyond the comfort zone, and I was like, but I love acting, so that's okay, and I'm going to stick with that. Despite that, I ended up still doing a singing show with the same company afterwards anyway, just because, I was
but in
my
retrospect,
friends.
you're looking, because you don't always make the decisions at the time. Sometimes it's when you look back at that period of your life, you're like, no, I need to move on from that.
Yeah.
I need to, that doesn't work for me.
Yeah.
So what was it with the singing and that kind of lead role that really didn't just sit with you well?
I think there's something about being like the titular character. I was at an incredibly vulnerable age, I think, as well. I think I was like, I want to say 17, 16,
and that's
17.
That's a difficult time for everyone, isn't it?
A difficult time. I was in a rubbish relationship. I felt like I was doing everything to please everyone else. Looking back now, that's like, and it was pressure. I was like trying to be perfect for everybody else, and I knew I wasn't. I remember like the director and the producer just feeling like I was constantly letting them down because they've chosen me to be this part and I wasn't good enough. That's how I felt. And in my relationship... Was that true? I think I wish in hindsight I would have had less inhibitions, because I think I wouldn't have gotten so poorly. I did lose my voice. It was an incredible. I think my relationship that was going on at the time had a lot of impact on it as well. It was like a similar dynamic.
You wasn't finding that escape, so it wasn't working for you. Where it worked for me, that I could escape into a show when I was going through a bad time.
And that's why it was kind of sad. Like looking back at that time, like I do feel sad about it sometimes, because I just feel like that wasn't me. And I think doing A Midsummer Night's Dream, which came after that, I'm so sure. If I've got the timeline wrong, but I'm sure it came after that, and that is like a fond memory. It still felt like I'm exiting drama now. It still felt like this is probably going to be my last thing, because it doesn't feel like, I don't feel like I'm getting what I used to out of this, and it felt like I needed something new, which I know like not a lot of people get. People fall in love with acting and they love it. I think as I got to that age, I realised it was aspects of acting that I liked. It was character exploration, and it was working with everyone, and it was being challenged and being thrown into a situation and having to, like improvise. It was all those like challenges that I enjoyed, and like creative challenges that I enjoyed, rather than presenting it to an audience to be criticised. It's a bad way to look at it. That's very negative. Not to be criticised, but to be, I should say, to be enjoyed and to be watched and to entertain, I guess. But it felt at the time, I'm putting myself out there constantly for everyone else. I think I got tired of I was rejecting myself. That was the problem.
The validation that we talked about in the beginning, where that was working for you for a while, it actually started to become an enemy to you.
Yeah.
That external validation.
Yeah. I think I wasn't getting it was GCSEs and moving into like A levels, which is tough generally. And yeah, as I say, like it felt like I was letting my parents down. It felt like I was letting the company down that was doing the theatre show. I felt like I was my boyfriend at the time. I felt like I wasn't good enough for him because he was rubbish. So it just felt like in all aspects of my life, I think I realised I'm doing this for everyone else. I'm just tired of putting myself out there and it not feeling good. So I think that's part of what.
And that's a good place that's a good point to make a change, isn't it?
Yeah.
When it doesn't feel good.
Yeah. I think that's I just really focused on my studies. That is right, because I was at sixth form when I did Midsummer Night's Dream. So I did my A levels. Midsummer Night's Dream, I want to say, was my last show at that theatre, and then I went to uni and tried to kind of find a voice who was actually me and not characters. And that was tricky in itself. Again, the private school thing came up. I got to uni thinking, this is going to be such a diverse uni. I'm in London. So I went to King's College, London. And it was diverse, but it was still like the majority of people were privately educated, and you could tell. Like, they could read the work, like all this philosophy, and they knew who these philosophers were already. I'd never heard of Karl Marx.
Yeah.
Like, I didn't know who that was. And he's like the number one like known philosopher. So I was like, they'd be reading all these texts and they'd be able to talk about the text and their opinions on it and other philosophers and their ideas and bring that in so eloquently. I was like, I have so much catching up to do.
How did that make you feel?
Awful. Because I'm a perfectionist, and it felt like it's hard not to be like, oh, I've been failed by the system. You just can't think like that.
So what did that do to you? Did that give you a drive?
It's the drive thing, yeah. I don't ever let it hold me back. Yeah. That's another good thing about theatre kids. Like, you get knocked back. You think you're getting ahead. You get to uni and you're like, yay, and then it's like, oh, and I'm like the stupidest person in the class again. But it's like a resilience thing, isn't it? Yes, I think with theatre people. You are just kind of built different.
You've got to build up that resilience quite quick, haven't you? Otherwise, it's not going to. Otherwise, it's not the thing for you, because there is going to be rejection in theatre. Yeah. You can't win every part and be every part that you want to be.
That's life jobs as well.
Yeah.
Like the amount of interviews people can go for, or jobs that they can apply for and never hear anything. It's tough. Like, you give yourself you give your time and your energy. And, you research the company you're applying for, and then they don't even bother to email you back. Yeah. It's definitely a transferable skill, but it's something that no matter what you're doing in life, it's going to be a skill that's handy. Because, as I say, got to uni, same thing, knocked me back. Caught up in the end.
Yes.
Didn't do badly, and kind of found my voice, I guess. Still like get quite nervous here and there. I find I'm the kind of person that if I feel like I'm not an expert and don't know the entire picture.
Is that when the nerves come in?
But you can never, not everyone doesn't know everything about their subject. Like, there's always going to be parts.
I think I find that if I go to that place of being inquisitive again, like you was saying that you were earlier, that's how I come out of nerves. It's really strange. Like, if I just take it from a place where I know nothing.
There's actually there's literally no shame in admitting you're I actually don't know about that. Can you share?
Can you help me here?
Yeah. Yeah. That's what I got into into that kind of second, third year of uni. I just got to that kind of comfy place of being like, I'm gonna go and talk to that lecturer and be like, I ain't got a clue about this bit. And then they'd be like, oh yeah, it's a tricky bit. And then they kind of reassure you. or they'd chat you through it and it makes so much more sense. And I was like, why did I not do that in the first year? I just didn't have any confidence. And you do just like, you kind of, you build up to it. It does still feel like privately educated people have a massive advantage, just in the way that they have got a head start a lot of the time. But it's not something that people need to let hold them back if they're not. Like, you can get to uni and you can like catch up. You might just have to put a bit of extra work in, which is a shame. But it's a good challenge. It's a good learning curve. And it's nice to come out at the end and be like, yeah, I really worked for that. And you've got to the same place that like people that had a little bit of an extra leg up have got. Yeah. So, yeah. And again, it just kind of gets you ready for life.
That not everything's fair. Not everything's balanced. Like I guess sometimes we feel like we want it to be fair.
Yeah.
And we maybe, of course, and like we want it to be easy.
Yeah.
But would it be so rewarding if it was easy? Yeah, like again, I'm going to mention my daughter will hate this if she ever listens to these podcasts because I talk about her so much.
It's quite sweet.
I don't think she listens because she hasn't moaned at me yet.
Fine.
But the other day she said to me, "Oh, Dad, why couldn't I have been a Nepo baby?" And
that's so good.
And I'm like,
we all want to be Nepo babies.
I'm like, because like it won't be fun, it won't be enjoyable. Like it's about the journey and not the destination.
So many people at my job are Nepo babies.
Yeah, but then if you get like, let's say you want to be a rock star.
Yeah.
And you can be a rock star because your dad was a famous rock star. Like, it
does help.
It'll get you know, Miley Cyrus. That worked
to be fair,
I don't know much. Well, I don't know much about Miley Cyrus, so I'm probably being unfair. Apart from the fact that she's
she's like the only like I'd say mainstream artist that I listen to. She's just got such a grungy voice.
Yes, yeah. So she's found her own thing. Yeah. But would she be in the position she was without the backing that she had?
No. I mean, yeah, that's. It's hard to say for the majority of Nepo babies.
But then, is it enjoyable? Do you think they get the same reward and fulfillment from life? I don't think
they're any different.
Yeah.
They've had like a life of luxury.
It's just part of It's just part of it.
Yeah.
So I quite like to think that whilst I've struggled, struggling now, that whilst I'm on the journey and there is somewhere that I'm going, it looks quite exciting.
Yeah.
And that if I do get to that place that's a bit better than where it is now, that I'll look back and be like, wow, what an achievement.
Yeah, it definitely does feel like, as I say, I've spoken about my role quite a lot, but having a role where there's a clear career path, it literally suits me to a T. I work with wonderful people and I'm being creative every day. Like, and like, it's not, you know, eventually I'll be well paid. Eventually.
Yeah. There's not many in the creative fields, in the creative industries like media, there's not always a definitive career path.
No.
So that's really interesting that you say that you've been able to find that.
Well, the thing with, I like a plan. I really struggle when I don't know where something's going or what's happening. And I've had this conversation with my manager. So we have got like a path in place for my like career trajectory and rough like a sense of when I'll roughly get to each stage, depending on the growth of the company and like how that goes. Just because I like to have something to work towards, not like as I say, like it's pretty. It doesn't have to be like that exact thing.
Yeah, because we spoke about how important it is to be flexible.
Yeah, and I do like to be flexible, but now I'm here and it feels so right. I think when you figure it out and if it's right, then stick with it. But it's not something that I can't then like go and change if I wanted to. I'm learning the kind of skills where like if I decided in a few years' time I wanted to actually work in like at a record label, I'd be able to just like transfer, and I just have to learn about the music industry a bit more.
How old are you now?
26. I just turned 26.
You're still like I think back to like 26 and like, oh, tell me to shut up if I'm giving advice. I hate them people that give people advice.
Give it.
But
give
like,
the advice.
I look back and I'm like, when I was in my 20s, I just wish I'd experimented more and took more risks.
I feel like I've done the experimenting.
You've done it. You feel like you've done it.
Yeah, like I think I'm quite honest with myself when I'm not enjoying something, because if I'm not enjoying something, it will like impact every sense of my being.
Mm-hmm.
I have to like I have to be very careful about like my life and balance and what's in my life and what I leave out of my life. So I think that the fact that I've found a role where it feels so right, I genuinely get up in the morning and look forward to going to work. Like that's a bit mad. And even when I'm doing like overtime here and there, I actually don't care. Like it's like, oh,
because it's part of your part of your life.
Yeah,
it's part of your
like
being.
I genuinely like. I know that in the long run, like I'm gonna get more responsibility out of it. I'm gonna be even more ingrained in the creative processes and decisions that the company's making. Like the more I show like a loyalty, and I'm getting like now I've been there a little bit longer. Like I'm getting more recognition and I'm getting thanks, which is lovely. I'm not doing it for that, but it's nice to hear that like people are noticing that I'm making things run more smoothly and I'm putting things in place that are helping people. Like that's kind of, it's kind of perfect for me. Right now though. And I'm aware that that's what's perfect for me right now. That might change, but that's fine.
But if it's perfect for you right now, keep going with it.
But yeah, I'm also very aware that like all the skills that I learned in theatre and like doing theatre back then was good for me then, which is not good for me now, but all those skills are relevant for me now. And all the skills I'm learning now might be relevant for a different job that I want in 10 years' time. Do you know what I mean? It's all like, it's all just good.
Yeah.
It's all just good vibes. As long as you're in, like, if you can find a place where you're learning new skills and enjoying yourself and getting paid for it, that's like, I know that it's a very privileged position to be in. I feel extremely lucky, but I'm also like, I've worked really bloody hard to get here. Like, it's been a long road, and like trying to literally like elbow my way in the door.
You deserve some good now.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that's okay to say that.
Yeah, I guess. It is nice. It is nice. I kind of like now just want that for other people.
How would you do that?
I don't know. See other people like that? It is hard because fun jobs are limited. But what I would say is I find my job fun. The next person probably wouldn't.
Yeah.
So personally, like finding something you're interested in, identifying your top skills and what you enjoy, like organising for me, and like kind of sorting things out for everyone is like that's my favourite thing to do. Like I love planning a holiday. Okay. The whole itinerary, the whole thing,
You do travel quite a bit, don't you? That's something I noticed on Instagram. You're a traveller.
I'm actually calming down a bit now.
Oh yeah, you've done the travelling bit.
Yeah, I'm trying to calm down. I'm trying to save to move out. I still haven't moved out.
Right. It's difficult to move out. It's difficult.
I heard Luna talking about it on the podcast.
Yeah, it's hard for you. Like it's hard for most of the people I know. Like it's it's very difficult out there. There's definitely a housing crisis. There's definitely a financial crisis going on.
Absolute nightmare. Like, yeah, it's, and that's the thing. There's so much pressure to earn that people will do jobs that they don't enjoy.
Yes.
So I know that.
So
like,
I guess
me
it's
saying all of this is very like, oh, well, it's okay for you.
Yeah.
Like people will.
But you are making sacrifices. You're not, living at home with parents. That is a sacrifice.
Yeah.
You could choose to perhaps do a job that pays a bit more.
I could
that
have
you hate to
a bit
get
more boring.
Yeah. To in order to get, but it's what do you actually really want?
Yeah. I say this to my partner all the time because he works in law. Boring. I'm joking. If you enjoy
but
law,
it might not be for, is it for him?
No. So aspects of law, he does say he finds boring. A lot of aspects of law, he's like, this is really interesting. I've learnt this, and this. But the pay is ridiculous.
Yeah.
So much better. And I'm like, why didn't I go into law? Should have done that. But I would hate it.
Yeah. But that's why you didn't do it.
That's why I didn't do it.
Yeah.
I need to, for my sanity, I have to. There's a familiarity in like the community of my company. It feels like a big theatre company in a sense. Like as I said before, I know everyone. I chat to everyone.
You're in the right. It sounds like you're in the right place.
And I think people need to look for that more. Mm-hmm. It's not always about like the actual role. I think it's what you make the role, because I've changed my role quite a bit, like adapted it a little bit. But also like it's figuring out a company that's right for you. Because a lot of the time, like, the job might sound great, but maybe that company's vibes are just not your vibes. It's someone else's vibes, but might not be your vibes.
No.
It's really hard to figure that out. Mm-hmm. I have lucked out. I say lucked out. I specifically went for them. But I had, like, finding them and like, putting all the pieces in place. Like, it takes time. Mm. So but now I'm in that position, it does make me like frustrated to see other people in jobs that they might not enjoy, or if they are maybe in that position where they do have to do a job that they don't enjoy, not then finding something outside of that where they can like fulfill their
needs. Yeah, because maybe that can be one road, is that you do a job that isn't you do it for the money and for a lifestyle that you want, but then there is always opportunity outside to find community theatre, to find start up a band, to do some painting, there's so many things that you can do to find yourself.
It's funny,
like, the creative thing doesn't have to be a job, does it?
No. And I think a lot of the time when you do turn it into a job, and I think people have probably spoken about this, when you turn it into a job, it can change it for you. Like, can add pressure. Where when you monetize it, it's like not your hobby. It might take a little bit of fun out of it, I guess. But it's funny because you reminded me of, I don't know if you've seen on the news recently, the government like scared about bars and stuff closing down because
of bars
and clubs and stuff closing down because people my age.
They're not going, are they?
Not going because we're all doing painting and rock climbing and pottery. And they're like, oh, what a shame. I'm like, well, first of all, we're trying to look after ourselves because the work life is absolutely like wearing us down. No wonder we want to do something like replenishing at the weekend. And also, like, no one can afford to go out drinking all the time because no one's getting paid enough. Like, what do you want from us? It does crack me up, but I think our generation is much more like, I'm generalising, maybe this is my group, but
what is your generation? What's your generation? I think I'm a millennial.
I'm kind of borderlining because I'm 98.
Right.
But my sister's, I don't know. But
I didn't realise that the reason for the decline in pubs wasn't just due to a financial thing. Pubs and clubs. I thought it was just a financial thing, but it's because they're finding
we're investing into other things.
Right.
We're investing into like well-being, I think.
Well-being,
a little bit more.
It's recognised as an importance.
Yeah.
Because it did look kind of a little bit like, if I think about as I was coming out of my teens into my 20s, nightclubs were getting packed and the drinking scene seemed binge drinking.
Yeah.
It just seemed to be like on this increase, and every weekend you'd see like Harlow Town Centre used to just be filled at 3 o'clock in the morning with people crawling along the floor or fights, and it's now dead.
Yeah.
The town centre's now dead.
Me.
But it's like, was that a good thing? Was that a good society?
Yeah.
The way that everyone was behaving back then, where we were just like working so hard Monday to Friday that we'd then just go and have to get shit faced on a Friday and Saturday night just to cope with it.
Yeah, it's funny. Yeah, it's funny when you put it like that. I think like when I was 18, 19, 20, I went out because that's what you did.
What you did, yeah.
But never really enjoyed it that much.
No. I did it and I hated it actually.
I loved dancing.
Right. Yeah, obviously dancing was your thing, yeah.
But like having to go and you were dancing but like around other people.
And it was like sweaty and smelly.
And just didn't feel safe.
Yeah. I remember a club in Harlow called Jumpin' Jacks. The music was quite good in Jumpin' Jacks compared to other places. It was like Bon Jovi and like 80
I would
stuff.
have been loving that.
Like the music was good, but then you'd go in the toilets and you'd have to like swim through the wee. and it would be really, really sweaty,
that really
and
upsets
stinking,
me.
and like everyone was smoking back in those days. So it'd just be filled with like smoke, and yeah, I just didn't. I enjoyed the music at that. That's why I went to that club, but I didn't enjoy anything else about it.
No,
and I could have just listened to that music at home or just around my friend's house.
Yeah.
I didn't need to be in that environment.
I think someone is. Actually, I feel like I should. Is it when you pattern it? Is that when I pattern it?
Yes, when you have an idea. Yeah.
I'm gonna pattern it.
Okay.
I feel like someone needs to open like a studio in London that's for like alternative people, where it's like an exercise studio, like spin classes, yoga, Pilates, all that stuff, but to like rock music.
Nice, yeah.
Because nothing annoys me more than the music at gyms. I'm sorry, it's so bad.
Yes,
I can't.
yeah. So yeah, I've just switched. So I'd switched my gym.
Yeah.
I was going to one gym, and I had a bit of it. Like I felt embarrassed that I'd asked for something to be done to the staff like too many times. I was like, I can't ask you anymore. It's like a weird thing. Like basically, the toilets were always dirty, so bad that every time I was going in there, I couldn't use the loos. So I was asking, guys, the toilets are dirty again. Can someone do something? And I'd asked like 3 times. I was like, I can't ask anymore. I'm just going to go to a different gym. Fair. But I go to this different gym now, and the music is like doom, 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 and I'm like, oh my god, I can't turn my headphones up loud enough because I just can't.
Is it that loud?
Yeah, I just can't I can't deal with it.
Yeah.
It's not, my brain doesn't. My brain's kind of good with this.
Yeah.
Like a one-on-one conversation, or it's good with
like lots of things
music,
going on.
but it's overstimulating. Yeah. Like it's too much, and I've got that type of music. It almost gets in my brain.
It annoys me so much. Yeah. I don't understand that. I know there'll be people listening.
And it'll be like, and be like, what?
I know, but I just, I feel like at a studio in London, alternative music.
Yeah.
It's just,
See, now I'm looking for another gym because of the music.
Oh, really? It's a nightmare. But yeah, I think I'd much rather spend a Saturday morning not hungover, doing a little gym class, getting a coffee, catching up with a friend, like doing an activity or something. I feel like Saturdays are like active days. Sundays we use to get ready for the week again. Sunday is like get everything washed and cleaned and meal prep day. Like that's all you can do. Like if you're like working Monday to Friday, you've only got 2 days. One day, like live it up, have a great time. But the next day, like you do just have to prepare.
It is nice to hear though that this generation is concentrating on well-being and looking after themselves.
Yeah, like I say, we would be. I don't like. Don't get me wrong.
Yeah,
I don't think we would be.
What do you think's done that?
Everyone's knackered. Everyone's generalising. That this is me generalising. Everyone's struggling. Everyone's knackered. No one really knows how they're gonna survive because there's no money, like to buy houses. Like everyone's a bit like, so they're just like, oh well, I might as well have some nice things now, and look after myself because the world's going to crap.
The world looks quite.
It's quite bleak. People are depressed. Like people are trying to look after themselves because ultimately, like the drinking and stuff only makes your mental health worse.
I feel like there's something like looming, like there's a negativity looming, and how can we best deal with that? How can we best?
I do feel like in the last I want to say 6 months, maybe this year, because there definitely was a negativity looming, and I think the whole pottery classes, bouldering, like all those activities, is us trying to reclaim our happiness in a way, trying to just like, if we're not going to have a house by the time we're 30, then let's look after ourselves because no one else is going to do it.
It's a good philosophy, and like I say, I prefer that to the philosophy that was around in my 20s. It was, we were all working really hard and we were trying our best, and it's really difficult, so we're just going to get shit faced.
Yeah,
like we're just going to drink it.
We do.
Like there is then that's fine, and everyone enjoys that to some extent. But it was like it was just getting so.
It's a lot.
It was getting a lot.
I don't have the energy.
No.
People, I do still know people that do go out 2-3 times a week. How?
Yeah.
I don't have the energy.
Yeah. No, it is draining, isn't it?
It's too much, in my opinion.
Yeah. The only thing I can think of is that is their coping mechanism for it all.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's the only thing, and so they have to throw themselves into that.
Yeah. Well, who knows what the next generations will do. Hopefully the housing prices will come down and we'll all be able to actually afford something.
Well, it can't keep going. Like I don't think things can keep going the way that they're going.
No, who knows?
Because
it would never surprise me.
Like so many strange things are happening in this world, but yeah, there's got to be a ceiling or a pop at some point, because if no one is moving out from their parents' house, and it's definitely the majority right now, isn't it?
Yeah.
That
I think
can't
there's
move
like
out.
a statistic. It's like, I think it's like 80 or something percent. I don't know. I'm not making this up. I did hear this very recently, but maybe Google it. It's an extremely high percentage.
We're not fact
people
checkers
that,
on this show,
no.
so like
an extremely high percentage of people that own a house at under the age of 30 or something have all been given like a lot of money from their parents
to be able to do it.
Yeah, which like for me and my partner, like we're never going to have that.
There's a social promise that's been broken. That's what it is. There was at one stage for my parents' generation, and even just before that, for like my brother and sister are like 10, 12 years older than me. Even their generation had a bit of a promise that you go to school, you work hard, you get a job, you work up the ladder, you can get a house, you can get a car, you can have a family, you can go on holidays.
Yeah.
And then at some point in the like early 2000s, that promise started to get broken, and it started to become for only those people with wealth can have that.
Yeah, and then it just gets passed
and
down.
Then each generation it's getting harder and harder, isn't it?
Yeah, I think it's like you have to earn. You have to have a joint income of 120,000 to be able to afford to live in London now, and have. I think it's more than one bedroom, which is a lot of money for like a lot of people. And
I was looking at renting in this town last year, in a normal town in the UK, to live in a shared house with strangers would cost you between £800 to £1,000 a month to have a bedroom.
Yeah, well, that's what my boyfriend's like renting with another like two other housemates right now, and his rent is 1,200 a month.
Yeah,
for shared
living with.
Like, that's great. It is nice to be fair, and it's in a good it's in Stratford, so that's a good location. But
that's still like that is your salary being eaten up just to pay to have a roof over your head.
Yeah.
So you can forget about
that's without the food.
That's without the food and the bills.
Rest of it. Yeah, it's actually ridiculous.
So then where does supporting your life come in?
Which is
come into the
and
income?
Now talking about this, it's like, oh, I feel really silly for being like, oh, people should find jobs that they're passionate about. I'm not trying to say that because I'm like, I don't want it. I know how hard that is. I know how much of a privileged position that I'm in to say like, follow your dreams and have a job you're interested in. I think coming back to that, what I would say is more so, if you have a sense, like if you want to be an actor, but that isn't something that is looking like a full-time possibility right now, almost see what skills that you like, or what parts of acting you really enjoy, and think about what other roles like you could do that utilize those skills, because you might actually find quite a lot of joy in that. I'm just like, we're just reflecting back on this conversation.
Yeah, and that's what we do. Like, we don't necessarily all have the answers or have to have the answers to this, but no, I do think there is something in it that
I just personally know like how much peace I found from like, okay, when I was a kid I wanted to be an actor. That's like, oh wow, I'll be an actress, that's amazing. And then as I was growing up a little bit further on, I was like, oh, maybe I'll be a producer, because that way I'm working in media and film and I can use my organisation skills. And then I've got into a career where now I'm like, that's not quite right, but I like those parts of the job, but I actually want to do these ones as well, and like figuring out all of my favourite things and putting them into one. That's where I've then found, it's got all of that combined. I found the peace.
And how much is that peace worth to you, I guess, is the thing. is that worth so much compared to having your own place?
Yeah, I mean, like
you
there eventually.
You'll get there. That's it.
It's
You're on the road. Like, do you have to have it now?
No,
I
don't have it now. So clearly not. And I could have gotten there faster, but I've gone on holidays and stuff because you do have to
have a life,
have nice things. But I think people would surprise themselves on what other opportunities are out there if they thought about their skills and their passions and combined them, because there's actually so many roles that people don't realise about. And I would encourage people, if they're like anyone like listening who's a bit unsure or might be interested in figuring out a potential other path, like to look into those mentorship schemes, because you'll have people like in the industry that will completely open your eyes to things that you never even knew were jobs.
I guess what you're showing is the dream might not necessarily be the thing, but it might just get you on the path to the thing. Like it might, you have that like,
what you have you think like, your dream is might not be the dream.
The dream, it might be, it might just be to get you on the road to it. Yeah.
Yeah. And I, like, as I say, without theatre and that whole, all those experiences, like, definitely wouldn't be able to do what I do now. Wouldn't have had the skills. It wouldn't have even been on my radar.
So what do you hope for the future then? What is the if you could jump in a time machine and go 10 years in the future, what are your hopes and dreams from where you are right now? I know we've talked a lot about being fluid and you're open to things, but if you could have some hopes and dreams for 10 years from now, what would that look like? Obviously, you've sat down with your boss and planned this, haven't you?
Yeah, well, it's whether I get there. 10 years actually isn't much time. Like, time flies. I feel like I've only just started at this company and I've been there 2 years. Like, bam, gone. I would hope in 10 years I'd be like 35.
Does that sound old?
Scary.
I'm 39.
Sorry.
Yes, it is old.
I think I'd like to be like head of operations at the company. I don't think that's unrealistic, personally. I work really hard and I'm going in the right direction. We're looking to, well, in the next year or a year and a half, we're opening 2 new studios in New York and Amsterdam. So we are expanding whilst trying to keep like a boutique-y vibe, despite the fact that it's obviously, we don't want to make it corporate, basically. We keep it quite chill. But I'm hoping, other than a job title, I just hope to be more, I think I'm still working on the work-life balance and managing how much energy I give to different aspects of my life. I've really struggled with keeping up with friends. And I like to consider myself a good friend in person, but I'm really awful at keeping up with the phone. So like there's things like that, and I feel like the job allows me to have a good time for myself, like go to the gym and stuff like that. But I'd hope at that point, because if I'd have a house as well, that's another thing to look after. Probably not children or anything, because that's another thing to look after. I think individual. There's just there's so many things that I haven't even thought about. As I say, my initial thing would be to be like head of operations, or to have a little bit more of a more senior role within the company, which I think is within reach, and to just have way more knowledge of the industry in general. But outside of that, I think having a bit more balance with... it's really hard, because actually, I do feel like I've got a relatively good balance, but there's things in my life that I feel like they take sometimes a back seat because I'm a bit overwhelmed and don't have the time to address, or as something I've struggled with over the past 2 years, since actively trying to stop people pleasing as much, is I feel like I'm not as good of a friend anymore, because I'm paying a bit more attention to myself, and I'm finding that balance between having time for all of my friends, but also making sure I schedule in a day a month for me to just have my own space, because otherwise I'm with people every single day.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I'd quite like just time to read a book. Not that I can read well anyway, because I have terrible attention span.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I'm trying to like get that happy place of balancing friends and myself and work and a partner and eventually a place to look after. It's like a little bit scary to think about, but I think it's one of those things.
Why is it scary?
Just because it's quite I find it hard now.
Is it because it seems a bit so attached? We're talking 10 years in the future, aren't we? So does it feel so detached from where you are now?
Yeah.
Like that's such a way away.
Well, I know how, like, if I think 10 years back feels like a lifetime ago. So much happens in that time.
You'd have been leaving school, wouldn't you, 10 years ago?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So weird.
So how it's changed since then, so how it can, how it can change moving forward.
Yeah, I feel so much happier, like, not being so like caught up in what everyone else thinks of me and how much of a good friend I am, and just like resting in the fact that like I am a good friend, like that's okay, and like I am just a person with a full-time job and who's trying to like navigate life and trying to make time for my friend. And I'm trying, do you know what I mean? But like what worries me is like it's only going to get harder. That's what it feels like a little bit. But it's one of those things, like the more you do something, the better you get at it. So things will just get easier, and then things will get added on top, I guess.
It's like compound interest, isn't it? Like
that's
the more the more that you're doing it, the more that you're moving towards that thing.
Yeah.
I
don't think anyone's really asked me about, other than my boss, and that's always work related. Like, where do you see yourself going? I've not really thought outside of work.
No.
What I see. I just.
We don't always take a moment to consider these things, do we? We don't always, it's not part of we're living every day, as it comes. We haven't got any choice about how time moves, but we will eventually get to that place.
Yeah.
There is going to be a future, we don't know how long life is, and things can change, but I've been here this long so far, so statistically I'm doing all right, and so therefore there probably is going to be a future me, and so what would I like that place to look like?
Yeah, I'd still be living in London. I don't think I'd move out yet by that point. But yeah, maybe I need to think. Maybe I'm revolving my life a little bit too around my job too much. But maybe that's because I feel like I'm in that time where I've got the energy for it. It doesn't feel like a bad thing. No. As I say, it's not like it. Yeah, it is tiring, but it doesn't feel draining. It's like a good tiring, like theatre. It's like you're going and solving a puzzle. And you can't. When something goes well, you get energy from that. It's like it's a buzz. You like the puzzle goes together. Like I win a freelancer, and they come in to work with us that we've been trying to get in the building for ages, and they're really talented. And I'm like, yes, small wins, like regularly. Then something will be like a really big challenge, and I'll be like, I'm absolutely drained from this. But then you get the payoff, and it's like that's really rewarding.
So as you progress and you get the bigger and bigger wins and you're moving forward more and more and life's changing, what advice would you give to yourself from this perspective that you are now?
Probably to not be complacent and not forget where I started out. I would say like, that's really hard. I think it would be, I imagine I will get to a point where it will, the small wins won't feel like wins, and the big wins will feel like small wins. Do you know what I mean? Everything will go like down in proportion. But I think almost like a reality check. Don't be complacent, because it's very privileged. I think because I've like right now I remember that because of how much work it's taken to get to this point. Whereas like by the time in 10 years, for example, I would have been in this role for 10 years, and there'll be loads of upcoming people that are dying for a role like it, or like in the industry, I think. So I think complacency is something that I don't want to ever be complacent with it. I want to always appreciate that. I think I will.
I think you will as well, from everything that you're saying and what I know of you and how you're driven, the mindset that you have. I think you'll think like that. And I'm also thinking that I'm surprised you haven't said this, and tell me if I'm wrong. I can also see you being in a role like that, mentorship type role as well.
Oh yeah,
I think you'd be someone that would be good at that, even at this stage now.
I was literally going to say, like, another thing I would say is to try and give back. I'm already trying to do things to give back to young people, because I wouldn't have got where I am now if I didn't get a helping hand. Obviously, it's putting yourself in the right place to get that helping hand, but I definitely I'm trying to already like get involved with diversity and inclusion at my work, and we do a lot of outreach that I try to get involved in, get students into the building and show them around and introduce them to artists. And sometimes artists are so busy, so it's just like, you will come and talk to these students and show them a project that you're working on, just because those things are like, students really remember that. And like, it makes quite a difference for them, because I remember all those like experiences that I had. Yeah, exactly. And yeah, as I say, like I now train up like junior schedulers, and send them off into the world of production. And part of that is like the people that we bring in, trying to like make sure that they're not nepo babies, because for years and years, a lot of the runners that would work at the company and most companies know this person, or the daughter or the nephew of this person, blah, blah, blah. So it's like, we're now a lot better at, it's people who actually apply, or people that we've met on mentorship schemes, or people we've met at universities that have made like a great impression. Yeah, especially in 10 years' time, I'll definitely have a lot more, hopefully I'll have a lot more authority to like make even more of an impact on it. But I do try and speak up already now. And yeah, I mean, I went to on a work trip to Germany about a month ago. And there's a company called Access VFX, and they help people access the VFX industry. It's in the name. But they were like, oh, you should be a mentor. You should be a mentor for us. They spoke to me a bit about the mentorship scheme I did. And I was like, personally, I don't feel senior enough just yet to be a mentor, but I would definitely do it. Give me a few years. Let me get manager in my title. Then I'll think about it.
Is it just from being from a place of having some kind of authority to be able to do that role? Knowledge as well, yeah, time and experience.
I'm definitely still learning. I'm not an expert in visual effects. I definitely know quite a bit, but...
And so you wouldn't be able to give back in the right way, would you, right now?
I mean, I could give back, but I could give back better in a few years' time. I think I'd like to... I could definitely help, and I'm helping in ways that I feel comfortable helping in now, by like bringing in students and going to school talks and things like that. Mentoring is quite like a intimate thing. Like, you need to get to know them, and then you're going to need to like assess them as a person and figure out what's going to be most helpful for them and what they might enjoy, for example. Which, don't get me wrong, I think I will be good at. It's just, I want to give myself a little bit more space to learn and grow in my role. In the meantime, that's the best thing about my role as well. I'm constantly learning new things. It's never going to be like the end. And
that's a wonderful thing to have, a place where you can keep learning and keep growing. Yeah,
that's the goal. Otherwise it's boring, isn't it? Yeah, it comes back to the theatre thing.
You learnt it back in the theatre.
Yeah.
So actually, talking back to the theatre, let's not leave the time machine yet. Let's go back in time.
Oh God.
Go back to yourself when you thought you were going to be a performer. Go back to yourself when you was at Peter Pan.
Yeah.
What would you say to yourself?
I'd be shocked, I think. I think I'd be really confused. Like, what are you doing? I think teenage Callie would be like... I think I would be really confused. I think I'd be like, why didn't you do... Although...
Can I get in the time machine with you?
Come and tell me, like, you're doing great.
You're doing great.
I think if it was Peter Pan time, I'd probably be like, that makes sense. Because I think that was around the time that I was starting to question, like, how I was feeling, putting myself out there for what felt like, it didn't feel like for myself anymore. And in my role now, although I'm doing things for everyone else, it's like it still feels like self-rewarding. I don't know if Peter Pan Callie would have been able to see that
would
much
be able
detail,
to process it.
But
so is there anything you could have said to Callie at that time?
This is all gonna like be helpful. I think there was a stage in my life where I'm like, I did all those years of theatre for what? For nothing. And now I'm like, you fool. It was all for like all of this. It's like helped in like so many ways. Probably there's still a bunch of ways that I probably haven't even considered.
That's exactly how I felt as well with acting as well.
You do. I think everyone goes through a stage
a moment of like, what was all that about?
Yeah.
Like, did I have
what
just wasted? What a waste of a life! And you have that moment of like, it was like, oh shit, like I've wasted that. Be it.
Yeah.
And then actually, when you reflect back, some time moves on, and you're like, actually, no, that I learned something there.
I think one thing that Peter Pan Callie would be happy with is the confidence I have to be myself. Like there's lots of things that I've like accepted about me, like in the last few years that like old Callie never would have done, or like would have let happen, I guess, or like wouldn't let show. That now I'm like, that's just like part of me, so I'm not gonna change it now, because actually I live more happily and more comfortably if I'm just authentically myself, that's obvious, isn't it? It's an obvious thing to say.
But it's so difficult to get there. Yeah,
but it is. It's another thing of finding a role that allows you to do that. And I think for some people that is acting. That is authentically themselves, like playing every day and being a new person and figuring that out. But it just wasn't for me. So finding a different way to do that and a different environment to channel the creativeness but still be myself and like be authentic was the right way to go. So I think, anyone who has done acting forever and then decides, actually, maybe not for me, I think it's worth thinking about all the skills and all of the positives that you'll get out of it and that you can bring into the next role that might fit for you.
I think you're a testament to changing that direction, and you're it's really nice and refreshing to hear that there can be a positive outcome from making a change. Yeah,
I think as I say, it's a shame to look back on all of those like positive experiences and say, oh, that was like not worth anything. Because there will not be one person who has done theatre growing up who's changed their mind and doesn't do theatre anymore that hasn't got something valuable out of one of those experiences, two of those, or all of the experiences. Do you know what I mean? There's like, even if they don't realise it, I think you can't not out of theatre, in my opinion. Maybe I'm biased because I do theatre, but
that's all this is just opinions and ideas, isn't it? We're just trying to work it out and learn and grow as we go along, I guess.
Yeah.
So
it's nice.
Well, this has been a really nice conversation.
Yeah.
I really appreciate this. I really appreciate you sharing.
Thanks. Rambling.
Thank you. Rambling. That's what we do.
I'm trying to find my thoughts as
you
well.
You find your thoughts as you go. It's like but that's what I like about this. It's an open space where sometimes within that rambling we might find something. Yeah. Yeah. We find a few moments of value and
a few moments of sense.
A few moments of sense within all the I feel like a lot of us are the same with that. But the more we open up and the more that we're free to just talk and share and talk about our journeys, we discover stuff within the journeys, don't we?
Yeah, and a lot of time you just don't think about it really until you're asked.
No.
And then you're like, oh yeah.
Hence why I'm asking.
Yeah. Very good.
So thanks again.
Thank you.
Thank you if anyone was watching or listening.
Yeah.
Appreciating you.
Thanks. Look at those mentorships.
Look at those mentorships. So where do you go to find out about these mentorships?
There's a bunch of different ones, but I did Creative Mentor Network. But there's also, like, for most industries, there's mentorships in different ways. Or just get Googling. As I say, yeah. If
Find
you're
a
into
mentor.
the creative yeah. The thing is, I think a lot of the time, even if there's a company that you're interested in, there's no harm in reaching out with an email and saying, I'm really keen to get a little bit of time in to chat about your company and or this role and what you do. It really intrigues me, like that kind of thing.
Mm-hmm.
Just show an interest. Questions. Don't say, I need this, I need that, I want this, I want that. I'm interested in this. Would you have any time? That's like probably the best way to go. But mentorships. They're very good.
Mentorships are the way forward.
Yeah.
Well, thanks again, Callie.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Perfect.
Lovely.